Okay, have you ever felt just completely worn out by the constant pressure to be positive, to always look on the bright side? Well, today we're tearing into a book that basically tells that idea to take a hike. Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Let's break down some of its most powerful and, honestly, liberating ideas.
Let's just try something. I want you to imagine, just for a second, waking up tomorrow and not worrying. Like, at all. Not about what your boss thinks, not about that comment on your social media, not about getting everything perfect. Just freedom. How good would that feel?
So here's the secret, according to Manson. It's not about being apathetic or indifferent. Nope, it's not about caring about nothing. It's about getting really, really picky about what you care about. It's about finding those few things that are actually worth your time and energy, and just letting the rest of it go.
All right, first up, we need to talk about what Manson calls the positivity trap. This is a weird one. It's this idea that constantly chasing happiness and always feeling like you should be happy is exactly what's making us miserable.
I mean, we've all seen this a million times, right? It's on posters, it's in self-help books. Just think positive, believe in yourself. You are a special, unique snowflake. But what if all that feel-good advice is actually doing more harm than good?
This kind of thinking can lead to this awful cycle he calls the feedback loop from hell. It goes like this. You feel a normal human emotion, maybe you're anxious or sad, but then, because society tells you to always be positive, you feel bad about feeling bad. So now, you're not just sad, and you're also beating yourself up for it. It's a total downward spiral.
And that leads us to a really core truth we just have to accept. Life isn't a perfect, curated Instagram feed. It's messy, it's complicated, and problems, they aren't a bug in the system, they're a feature. They're totally normal part of being alive.
So, okay, if we can't get rid of problems, what's the point of them? This brings us to our next big idea. We need to completely debunk this fantasy of a problem-free life and start to understand why we actually need to struggle.
You know, just think about it for a second. That student who's pulling an all-nighter for a huge exam, the athlete who's pushing through pain day after day, the entrepreneur who keeps getting knocked down but gets back up again. Sure, it's all suffering in a way, but it's meaningful suffering. That struggle is what makes the achievement at the end feel so damn good.
And here is the big aha moment. Happiness isn't waiting for you on some tropical beach where all your problems have magically disappeared. No, happiness is found in the process of solving problems. It's that feeling you get from actively tackling challenges that you've chosen that actually matter to you.
This idea completely flips the script on how we approach life. See, most of us are asking, how can I avoid problems? But the better, more powerful question is, what problems am I willing to have? What kind of pain am I willing to endure? Because the answer to that question, well, that tells you what you really value.
All right, deep breath for this next one. It might sting a little, but stick with me, because it's one of the most important ideas in the whole book. We have to escape this cultural delusion that we are all destined to be extraordinary.
Everywhere you look, social media, movies, you name it, we're being hit with this message that we're all meant for greatness, that every single one of us is special and unique and destined to change the world. And you know what that does? It just creates this massive, crushing anxiety to live up to something impossible.
The really toxic byproduct of all this is entitlement. When you're told you're special your whole life, you start to believe that you deserve amazing things just for being you. But life, as we all know, just doesn't work that way. It doesn't hand out gold medals just for showing up.
Now, this might sound like a total downer, but Manson says it's maybe the most freeing thing you can possibly realize. Once you accept that you're pretty much average, like most of us are, poof! All that pressure to be some kind of genius or superstar, it just evaporates. You're free to just be you.
And here's the best part. The moment you stop wasting all that energy trying to prove you're special to the world, you can finally channel that energy into actually getting better. You start working from where you are, not from some fantasy of where you think you should be. That's where real growth happens.
Okay, so we've torn down a few big ideas. How do we build something new? It all comes back to the title of the book, The Subtle Art of Consciously and Deliberately Choosing What Actually Matters.
So the whole philosophy really boils down to three things. First, accept that life has problems, so you might as well pick some good ones to solve. Second, remember that happiness is in the climb, not just the summit. And third, drop the ego, embrace being average, because that's the real starting line for growth.
In the end, this is it. This is the whole game.
Life is short, and you only have a limited amount of attention, a limited number of fucks to give. The art is in choosing your battles wisely, deciding what's worth fighting for, and learning to let go of absolutely everything else.
And that brings us right back to you. It's the only question that really matters, and only you can answer it. When you look at your life, what struggles are you willing to take on for a greater purpose? What problems are worth solving? What do you choose to give a fuck about?
So have you ever stopped and wondered why the most meaningful, most memorable moments in your life almost always come with some kind of struggle? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea that the real price of a meaningful life isn't comfort, but something way more challenging, and in the end, so much more rewarding. Look, we're all kind of wired to seek comfort and run from pain, right? It's just basic survival instinct. But what if that very instinct is the thing holding us back from everything we really want? This whole explainer is built around one single, kind of provocative question. What if the value of our lives is directly tied to the price we're willing to pay in pain? And that leads us straight to our first big idea, a mindset shift that honestly changes everything. It's not about getting better at avoiding pain. It's about learning how to choose it, and choose it wisely. Now, I know that might sound a little intense, but just think about it for a second. What's the one accomplishment you're most proud of? Was it learning a new skill, hitting a new record at the gym, or maybe building a really strong relationship? Whatever it is, I bet it wasn't easy. It took effort, it took sacrifice, and yeah, probably a little bit of pain. That's not being negative, it's just being real about what it takes to build something that actually matters.
This breaks it down perfectly, doesn't it? There's this direct trade-off between what we want and the discomfort we have to be willing to go through to get it. You just can't have one without the other. You want success? You have to be okay with failure. You want a healthy body? You've got to tolerate those exhausting workouts. And deep, meaningful relationships? They're forged in the fire of disagreements and tough conversations. It's an unavoidable equation, really. No struggle, no value.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. The goal isn't a life with zero pain. The goal is a life where the pain you feel actually means something. It's the difference between the ache of pushing your limits versus the ache of staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. One is the pain of growth, the other is the pain of stagnation. You know, when you really embrace this, the questions you ask yourself completely change. Instead of, how can I get comfortable, you start asking, what is important enough to me that I'm willing to suffer for it? That simple little shift in perspective, it's like a compass. A powerful compass that can guide you toward a life that actually feels meaningful. Okay, so you've picked the struggle you're willing to endure. What's next? Well, this brings us to our second key principle, taking radical responsibility. It's about more than just making a choice. It's about owning the path you're on, no matter what it throws at you. This is such a crucial distinction. We've all been there, right? Situations that were completely unfair. And it's so easy to get stuck on who's to blame, but that's a total dead end. The real power comes when you shift your focus from what happened to you to what you are going to do about it. That's the moment you take back control. And here it is. This is the difference between being a victim of your circumstances and being the creator of your life. When you blame, you're literally handing your power over to someone else. You become a passenger. But when you take responsibility, you grab the steering wheel. You decide what happens next. There's actually a name for this whole mindset: extreme ownership. It's this idea that you are responsible for everything in your world, even the things that aren't your fault. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about empowering yourself. And honestly, it's a trait you find in pretty much every highly successful person out there, from military leaders to top CEOs. All right, our third and final mindset shift. This one tackles a fear that holds so many of us back, the fear of failure. But what if we've been looking at failure all wrong? What if, instead of being something to avoid at all costs, it's actually the only real path forward? We always see the highlight reels, don't we? But we almost never see the bloopers. The truth is, every single success story is built on a mountain of failures. For every amazing company, there are a dozen failed startups. For every gold medal, there are countless losses. And for every masterpiece, there are hundreds of crumpled up drafts in the trash can. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the price you pay to get in the game. This is a tough pill to swallow, but it is so, so true. If your main goal in life is to never fail, then you will, by definition, never truly grow. The two are completely linked. You just can't have the incredible upside of growth without accepting the downside risk of failure. So how do you actually use failure as a launch pad instead of a brick wall? Well, it's a simple but definitely not easy process. You try something, you fail, you learn from it, and you try again. It's not a straight line, it's more like a spiral staircase. Every failure is just another step up, getting you that much closer to where you want to be. So we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Choosing your pain, taking radical responsibility, and even embracing failure. So what does it all add up to? Well, it all comes down to a single, really powerful choice. This, right here, is the ultimate mindset shift. The pain you choose, the responsibility you take on, and the failures you learn from, they aren't your enemies, they're your allies. They are the raw materials, the tools you've been given to build a life of genuine purpose and meaning. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. The struggles you're facing, the responsibilities you carry, and the failures you've been through, those aren't your weaknesses. They're your strengths. They are the building blocks of a meaningful life. The only question left is, what are you going to build with them? Okay, so the title, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. You just can't ignore it, right? But what's it really about? I promise it's not a license to be a terrible person. Not at all. It's actually a super powerful way to think about your life, and we're going to break down exactly what that means. All right, first things first, let's get one thing straight. This isn't about not caring about anything. In fact, it's the total opposite. It's about being really, really picky about what you care about. The whole subtle art part, that's all about learning to figure out what's actually worth your time and energy and what's, well, just noise. But let's be real for a second. Why do we do this? Why do we say yes all the time? I mean, really think about it. We say yes to stuff we don't want to do. We take on projects we have zero time for. We just stretch ourselves completely thin. Why? Well, it actually boils down to one super simple, very human thing. We chase approval. That's it. We have this deep down need to be liked, to be accepted. We don't want to rock the boat, right? So we say yes, thinking, hey, if I make them happy, then maybe I'll be happy. But, and this is a big but, that habit has a price tag, and it's a lot higher than you think. See, every single time you say yes to something that doesn't really align with what you believe in or what you actually want to do, it's like you're chipping away a tiny piece of yourself. Your yes starts to mean less and less, and before you know it, your own goals are buried under a mountain of everyone else's. And that's why this quote is so perfect. If you want to stand for something, anything, you have to have boundaries. You absolutely need the word no in your vocabulary, because no is what protects your yes. It turns your yes from just a reflex into a real conscious choice. That's how you defend what you care about, by being deliberate about where you put your energy. Here's another way to look at it. Your attention is basically a currency. You only got a certain amount each day, and you have a choice. You can spend it on, I don't know, random drama on the internet, or worrying about what some person you barely know thinks. Or you can invest it. Invest it in yourself, in your goals, in the people who actually matter in your life. Okay, this next one is intense. It's blunt. But stick with me here because this is probably the most important idea in the whole book. It's not supposed to be a downer. Seriously, it's supposed to set you free. Because when you really let it sink in that your time here isn't infinite, all the little meaningless stuff just poof, it disappears. That awkward thing you said at a party last week, who cares? Needing likes from strangers online suddenly seems kind of ridiculous, doesn't it? It's like this ultimate filter that just gets rid of all the junk and shows you what actually, truly matters. So it all comes down to making a switch, a conscious choice. You stop worrying so much about what's going on in everyone else's head, and instead you focus on your own growth. You stop chasing that social media validation, and you start looking for real challenges that actually make you a better person. You swap out all these crazy expectations for taking responsibility, and you pour your energy into real relationships with real people. I love this next idea because it completely flips the script on what we think a good life is. You know, we're all taught to believe that happiness means having zero problems, just smooth sailing all the time. But that's not just impossible, it's not even the point. And boom, there it is. It's about having better problems. A good life isn't about avoiding struggle. It's about choosing your struggle. So instead of the problem of feeling bad about yourself because you're trying to please everyone, you choose the problem of being sore after a great workout. Instead of the problem of hating your job, you choose the problem of the stress that comes with building something you love. You get to pick your problems. So we've gone through a lot, right? From the whole people-pleasing trap to, the fact that we're all going to die. Heavy stuff. But if there's just one thing you take away from all this, what should that one thing be?
It's this. This is the whole idea in a nutshell. Stop caring so much about the things that just don't matter and start focusing, really focusing, on the things that do. It's a command, really. Be selective, be intentional, find out what's truly important to you, your values, your people, your growth, and pour all your energy into that. Everything else, it's just noise.